Now, Stewart Little's the General Secretary of the Public Service Association of New South Wales. There will be a strike called by midday today. It'll be child protection workers, and I fully support their action. I fully support it because the state government needs to do something about the way we protect our children, which at the moment is way down on what you would expect. I'm not blaming Kate Washington nor Chris Minns for the problem. They've inherited it, but they've got to do something about it. They're the people there with a mop and bucket cleaning up the mess. Stewart Little, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ray.
These figures sent through by your office to me are scary. 435 children will go to sleep tonight in hotels, motels and caravan parks, supervised by labour hire workers, I'd imagine with no expertise in looking after children on rotating out 8-hour shifts. Now, it's broken. It's completely wrecked the entire system, and it looks like it's wrecked because we've decided that the government don't look after these children anymore. It's a matter for not-for-profit and for-profit organisations. It appears that most of them have dismally failed the kids.
Ray, I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, we've discussed this issue a number of times over, I suppose, the last 6 months or so. And, you know, we've often spoken about a system that is in crisis. But I have to say, I think the system has collapsed, certainly collapsed in many, many parts of the state. We're at a situation now where we have no offices in places like Walgett, Canamble, Wilcannia. We've got offices on the northern rivers, the Riverina, that are virtually on life support. It means that we're getting to see 1 child in 5 that is reported to the department. They're kids at risk of serious harm. As you rightly said, we've still got well over 400 kids in emergency care. Some of those kids are in caravan parks, in hotels. But can I say, Ray, that's in the privatised foster care or out-of-home care part of the system. Some of them are for-profits and some of them are not-for-profits, but some of those enterprises are charging upwards of $18,000 a week per child. Some of them have charged in excess of $3 million for 1 child, and as you said before, we've got 430 kids in this situation where we don't have proper care for them in a system where over 14,000 kids are in the system, right? There are 14,000 kids that are out there in foster care. But we've got a situation where we've got about vacancy rates in excess of 20% across the state. And something has got to give. We need a plan from the state government. As you said, they may not have created this situation, the new government, but they've certainly inherited it, and it's up to them to do something about it. And you know, I've never seen it like this. I mean, I was with our members on Friday. They are distraught. They've had enough. They've had a gutful. They have just said, obviously, they've got to put a lot of, you know, things into place to make sure that kids that are at risk are looked after. But they've just said, look, we're walking off statewide. First time in my memory that's happened. I mean, obviously, there's been some stoppages, but the situation is dire. We really do need the Premier, who I've spoken to on this. He understands there's a problem. We need a plan out of this mess, Ray. That's what we need, a plan.
Can I just tell you a story, something that just occurred to me? And I can't disclose, for obvious reasons, the circumstances here, but I'm talking about a child in foster care and being well provided for. Yeah. She was acknowledged by an organisation, which I can't disclose, that my wife and I were invited to 2 Saturdays ago. So we went to a small hall in Sydney with only about 20 or 30 people there for this young person to be elevated to a certain status among a service organisation. So, and, you know, it was just a wonderful night of celebration. So I didn't meet everyone in the room, but I said good day to quite a number of people. And then there was this young woman there. And on the way home, I said to, I met the foster carer, I met her family and everyone else. And then I said to my wife, who was that young woman that you were talking to? She said, that's the caseworker. I said, the caseworker? She said, yes, she came to that presentation under her own steam. Now, I can't identify her for fear of identifying the foster child. But I couldn't believe it. This woman in her 30s, I guess, maybe younger, on a Saturday night when she's not working, came to this presentation to this young person in foster care under her own steam. Now, had I known that, I would have gone up and shaken her hand and said, "God, strike me, you should be going out and doing something, but here you are doing this." And that's the type of people we're dealing with here that are dealt with in the most appalling fashion. I'm talking about the caseworkers. Now, you and I spoke about that non-government provider receiving just a tick over 18 grand a week to care for two boys who went hungry and had no winter clothes.
Correct.
I mean, that happened ages ago. Don't tell me it's still happening today.
It's still happening today, Ray. Yes, it's still happening today, and I couldn't agree more with you, those caseworkers. This week is the start of Child Protection Week. It's a week where we should be celebrating the work that so many people do. Police officers do a fantastic job in child protection, doctors, nurses, all sorts of people. And then you've got caseworkers, as you rightly say, who just go above and beyond. Many give up their time to look after the kids, and they'll do that tonight and every night. And as I said, they're despairing at the situation because they cannot see a map out of it. And this is what we said. We need hope for these workers. We are recruiting sometimes 500 and we're losing more than that because we're just not competing. Even within the public sector, they can pick up jobs in other departments, in JJ's, youth justice, elsewhere in the system, and get paid 10, 15,000 a year more. They can go to the private sector and earn a lot more. And it's acknowledged, but we don't seem to be getting any action on the ground. And this is where I'm getting frustrated. Our members are frustrated. I know it's such a difficult decision for them, but as I said, they've despaired. They really are despairing. They're walking off the job today. They would rather be out there doing their job than doing this. But, until such time as we can get a plan out of Kate Washington, and again, I agree with you. I think she's made all the right noises, but we need a plan. We need it now, or, we need it sometime soon. We will work with her. She's got our commitment, my commitment. We will work with her tirelessly to come up with that plan. We've got to stop the rorting. We've got to bring that back in from the private sector because, unfortunately, that has not worked. They've got to be accountable, mate, and we've got to try and get those services back up to a point where they're delivering and they're intervening and they can do their job, because at the moment they're not. It's a system that has collapsed, and we've got to try and fix it.
Well, it looks to me, I'm not being sarcastic, that those operating this system, the NDIS may have modelled themselves on this. They may have said, let's have a look at what's happening with childcare, with child protection caseworkers and the non-government sectors, and let's do exactly the same thing in the NDIS. Now, because what happens, you and I know, as soon as a state or federal government turns on the tap, everyone gathers around it for their bit of honey there. They want to get a bit of that money.
Yeah, it's exactly what's happened, Ray, and we've discussed this on numerous occasions on child protection, in disability care and elsewhere, because unfortunately it's a subcontract model where even though they might be paying $18,000, the government, the person who's actually there looking after the young child, who probably has no working with children check, probably worked out of a labour hire, is probably getting $160, a day to look after that person. And then you've got some middle person picking up all the profit and all the money. It's a rort. That's what it is, as we've described it, rampant throughout the NDIS. It's a great funding model. It's not a service delivery model, and that's what's happened here. And so it's encouraging rorts.
So what's Kate got to do? When was it decided to outsource this crucial work with children, and how will we rein it back in and say, right, we're going to go back to the other model that we got rid of and decide that we're going to actually get the government to look after this, and therefore there's checks and balances on how much money's spent?
Yeah, this happened over a 10-year period. Really started 12 years ago, where bit by bit you had a lot of NGOs come into this space, and some of those NGOs may also be involved in healthcare, in aged care, in disability service. But when it comes to child protection and foster care, you question whether they're really able to do that. And what we've seen is what they often do is go, even though we'll say we can do it, we'll just get a contractor in to look after that child, or we'll simply say, well, sorry, we're not going to take that child. You're on your own, even though they may have a contract where they're supposed to look after them. And then that ends up becoming the taxpayer's problem at great expense. So The whole system, it's like you think of that sign, all care, no responsibility, albeit they're just rorting the system on the way, and they're not taking responsibility for the actions. They're not taking responsibility for these kids, and it's got to stop. So we need a map. I mean, effectively, we need to... I mean, they know who they are. Well, why are they still in the system? Why have we not given them notice? You know, we'll pick up the good staff, bring them back in. We've got vacancies right across the public sector,
Yep.
and obviously then we need to look at putting that money that we save into proper salaries where we can attract and retain frontline caseworkers. You know, but we've got to put one step in front of the other. It's got to start by bringing these for-profits, the rorters, at getting out of the system. That's the first step, and we need to know where and when we're going to do that. That's the government's decision. They've got to act on that. They've got to act on it now.
Okay, so it's a 12-hour strike today, but ongoing, I guess, action unless Kate Washington and the New South Wales state government come up with a solution sooner rather than later. They can't just... I mean, she's doing all the right things in terms of making noises about it. She, spoken to the ABC and said it's broken. Child protection's broken. She spoke to senior managers, said, look, there's a real bullying attitude, vindictiveness and retaliation towards caseworkers. That's got to stop. But at the end of the day, what she's got to do is say, I'm the minister. Those non-government organisations, particularly the profit organisations as opposed to not-for-profits, you're excluded. We're getting rid of you. We're going to take your best staff, employ them. The budget's going to go towards looking after children and move on from there.
The time for talk's over and the time for action is right now, Ray. We've got to see that. We need to see a plan for that. And, that's what our members are looking for. And obviously then we want to see that money reinvested into the front line.
Okay, appreciate your time. Let's hope that is achieved in the very near future. All the best, Stuart.
Appreciate your support, Ray. Thank you.
Thank you, Stewart Little, General Secretary of the Public Service Association.